I appreciate you two being here. Because I have this mojo of screwing up technology.
You're all good.
Hey, welcome. We'll get going here. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. It looks like the weather's going to get a little bit crazy, so we'll do this as quickly and as efficiently. I guess it'll be kind of the same thing, but and do as good a job as we can presenting what we do here in Johnson County. So Lori's here from Meadowlark, Jake's here from KC. We've got some school board members here. It was not a requirement for staff to be here, but thank the staff for showing up tonight. So Lori, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay. So earlier, about a month or so ago, we started hearing some concerns about a podcast titled Soul the Story that began circulating around. In that podcast, it targeted several curriculum programs, one of which we use, or parts of what we use, that found us out. So we felt rather than to let those fears and concerns grow, linger, if you will, we put together a slide deck and I presented it to my Meadowlark Herd group, which is our PTO group, a couple weeks ago, and it really seemed to bring to clarity of quite a few questions and answers. So we thought that it would be good to bring it to the community as a lark. And see if there were other questions or concerns out there. Our Title I teachers, Gina Sheets, Janice Anderson, and LaRon Cox will be at some point presenting some of the actual materials, because sometimes we talk in teacher speak and it's hard to visualize unless you have the actual materials in front of you. So thank you to them. So we'll go ahead and roll. The literacy pendulum is constantly in motion, and that's true. This topic of, the full phonemic approach versus whole language has been in discussion for over 50 years. It's been going on for a very long time. The key to raising successful, well-rounded readers and critical thinkers is to make absolutely sure that the 5 critical components are being taught and monitored in a very strategic and purposeful ways, no matter what the literacy program is in play.
So just kind of give a little bit of history. This goes back, and I'm not embarrassed to say that 2006 was the first year that I came to Buffalo, but that's as far back as my memory goes. But to that point, and Buffalo had a really, really stable, it continues to have a real stable force of teachers. Teachers come into Johnson County and they stay. And the work of the teachers pre-2006, they had created units of study in language arts and math and integrated things. And like I said, the teacher group was pretty, they'd been together a long time. They all knew. About 2006, maybe a year or two before that, a new era of teachers started moving in. And it wasn't that they didn't know this, but they didn't necessarily have buy-in to it. Maybe they didn't know all the pieces that went into creating it. So we started to see some holes in what was happening. So that's when we started. We adopted foundations in that next school year. We brought in Hope and Mifflin, did some training on that, and adopted that. And then we kind of stayed with those things until about 2018, and that is when we began vetting new programs. We looked at Fountas and Pinnell. We looked at American Reading Company, which is ARC. We looked at Hope and Mifflin. And as a staff, a K-5 staff, we landed on the Fountas and Pinnell framework. It's not a curriculum. It doesn't say you have to do this. It just lets teachers be teachers, okay, and make good decisions on a day-to-day basis. We did adopt or purchase the Fountas and Pinnell materials, which includes LLI, which is an intervention. And in that first year of implementation, COVID happened. So in Cloud Peak, we didn't even receive the materials until probably mid-October, closer to the 1st of November. And then we shut down the middle of March. So we didn't even get, I think saying 6 months of implementation is really stretching it. We shut down, and then we came back the next year, and we had all the COVID restrictions. We had masks, we had kids in and out of the classroom, we had teachers in and out of the classroom, so we just didn't have our second year, even going clear into the 1st of April, we had all of those protocols in place, all those restrictions in place. And then last year, probably as far as what we would remember as normal, as close to normal as possible. But we started seeing some issues with LLI, and not issues with LLI, but concerns about students not progressing. So we started asking the questions of staff, what's going on? Why are kids not making the gains that they should be making? And so as a K-5 in the district, we started looking at what are some other options. And so we also had the training on the science of reading that started popping up. And right now we have not all staff, but I would say probably 90% in my building of teachers that work with kids in reading. And I think it's probably similar at Meadowlark, similar out at KC, are either just really in the process of letters training. We have a group that just finished the volume 1 and 2, so that's 2 years, well over 150 hours of training in reading. That training itself, and teachers can speak to that, opened a lot of eyes. Stuff that probably teachers should learn. Some did, some didn't in college. So I think there's a lot of ahas with that. A lot of confirmations though too. This school year, we began piloting the Horizons as a Tier 2, Tier 3 intervention. So the kids that are not working well within our core programming, we began implementing the Reading Horizons. And there's some problems with how we implemented it this year. We discovered that as we were piloting. But at this point, I think we're seeing some really good results from that. We'll share some results here in a little bit.
And the Hagerty is just at Meadowlark at this point for a Tier 1.
Yeah, I don't think anybody in this building is using the Hagerty at this point.
So there's 5 big areas that must be addressed while teaching a child to read. It doesn't matter what program you're using. Phonological awareness, which your phonemic awareness falls under that as a subcategory. Phonics, fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. Writing is embedded in the literacy instruction daily. So this is Scarborough's reading rope, and I don't know, Amber. Oh, Am, how you heard you in this one? Sure. So Amber's one of our first grade teachers in Millwood.
So this reading rope pops up a lot in literacy, especially if you're taking the letters course. And it really talks about how, there were those 5 areas of literacy that Lori talked about. The first 3, phonemic awareness, phonics, and decoding, all happen within the blue ropes, the word recognition. And then the vocabulary and the comprehension really falls within the red, the language comprehension. And what was really neat about this is when they presented it in my letters course, it just made sense with what we were talking about at school and the scores that we noticed we were missing in the phonemic and decoding areas. And so the blue rope, the word recognition, is really where that Hegarty program and the Reading Horizons fits in. And then the red portion, the language comprehension, I've noticed Fontes and Pinnell does a really good job with that. Our letters course really talks a lot about how you can't just decode and you can't just understand what you're reading. You have to have both to make a strong reader. Because if we were to get rid of the Fontes and Pinnell or whatever program we used, whatever resources, we didn't have that strong comprehension and we just went to the decoding, pretty soon it unravels and then the reader swings the other way. And so for a while we had kind of a frayed rope because some of our kids looked like they were decoding, they looked like they had that blue part of the rope, but really they were just good at guessing and using the pictures in the book. And that is a good strategy. I feel like you still need that strategy, but I don't think it should be the only one that they rely on. And we noticed that once they get to 2nd and 3rd grade, there were more holes in that blue rope that we didn't expect to see. And so I don't know if you've heard the podcast, I'm sure we'll talk about it later. But she really talks a lot about that blue rope and how Fontes and Pinnell doesn't address that, which is true. And they told us when we bought their program that they did not have a strong phonics portion, which is why we use foundations. But we're just noticing that foundations doesn't work for every kid. And it's, in my opinion, it's kind of isolated. I don't feel like it does a good job of weaving in and out, showing kids how to decode while they're reading a story at their level. There's also a buzzword out there, decodables, and that is a book that kids can read by themselves, but it's very much like, see the hen is 10, and they can read that at their own level. That's really good for teaching them how to decode, but the comprehension is so surface level. I mean, you can't really make a text-to-self connection with a decodable. And so that's why I really like the Fontes and Pinnell program and the wealth of interactive read-alouds and guided reading books and book clubs, because those stories kids can connect with and they can learn about character traits and they can just dive in a lot deeper. And some districts are totally getting rid of Fontes and Pinnell because of this podcast, and I feel like pretty soon we're going to have another podcast and kids can't comprehend. So that's just the connection that I had made and wanted to share.
Great.
You want me to talk again? So, yeah, phonological awareness. So this goes back to the 5 big areas of reading. And so phonological awareness is the overarching term for any strategy that supports students in noticing and or manipulating sounds in speech. Phonemic awareness is a category under phonological awareness and is more detailed in supporting students to articulate and manipulate individual speech sounds called phonemes within words. So now there might be someone in the room, a teacher maybe, that can put that into more simple terms. What's the difference? Is there?
I think it's all kind of part of the same boat in some ways, but the thing that really gets me here is you do this skill with your eyes closed. You're just manipulating manipulating sounds, you're hearing sounds, they're coming in through your ears, you're producing those sounds, manipulating them in some way. This is not reading a book, this is not using your eyes, it's just the manipulation of sounds, and it becomes very important in that later reading skill.
I'll take this one. So phonics. Phonics is specific instruction to teaching letter wrappings and the sound of phonemes and the relationship between them. So we're hearing about sounds, but we're now associating them with actual letter. So that's phonics.
Fluency is the ability to read a text accurately, with speed, and with expression.
Comprehension is the ability to make sense of the meaning of what is read.
The vocabulary is the ability to understand the words we read and be able to communicate effectively. So as we build on our reading, we gain in our vocabulary. So more exposure to words and uniqueness of words is crucial.
So in Johnson County School District 1, we have many tools, and we truly look at every program that we have at our fingertips and available to us as a tool to enrich the literacy lives of our students. The Fountains and Canal materials are interactive read-alouds, guided reading through pattern books, mini lessons, shared reading, book clubs, LLI, which is your level literacy intervention. We have access to Reading Horizons, which support the decodable, foundations, footprints, amplify, tools of the mind, A to Z reading, which is Raskins online, and I think that our title teachers are going to stand up and do a quick shout out for some of these. They've actually brought some materials with them, so when we're done here, if you would like to pet the books, you certainly can. That sometimes helps clarify some of the mystery. You can actually see what we're talking about.
Okay, this is Hagerty, or phonemic awareness, that we pretty much adopted in January, I'd have to say. This is going to fill the hole, or is filling the hole of the phonemic awareness. That is what Mrs. Cox talked about. If you're in a room, it can be dark, and you can do phonemic awareness. You don't have to see anything to perform it. We have this in JK, K1 and 2. It builds upon itself, and it's pretty fluid. It takes 7 to 10 minutes to do this activity with the kids.
And this is the Reading Horizons that you kind of hear us talking about. We dove into this this year, and it just gives you that decodable pattern with marking up of words, which is probably its golden piece, is how it's marking up words, how you're able to decode it, so you can take it into a book that's familiar as a decodable, or even taking it into this LLI, the level literacy intervention that we're talking about, because now the kids understand the word patterns, they understand the vowel patterns, and they can break apart those bigger words. This has been part of our district pretty much in our building from the beginning of the year. We're seeing a lot of success with it, which we'll share with you. So, Reading Horizons.
Sunlight started Reading Horizons in January with our kindergarten, first and second grade teams.
And what about that book? When does over here? I was just curious what that thing started.
Can you say it again? Sorry.
I was just curious, is that for like second, third grade, or? So it starts way back in kindergarten. Oh, okay. And this manual just happens to be chapter 3, which doesn't matter too much. So the beauty of this is that they do start the kids at that basic level, and they expedite or speed them through until the level they need to stop and practice and work at. It's review, it's work. We're getting them all of those decodable skills, all of those phonics skills until they're ready to fly and just go out into those other rich books where comprehension would be really deep.
And Mrs. Anderson, you have decodables, correct?
Yeah, these are the decodables that go along with what Mrs. Cox was talking about. Also, K2, I think 3 as well, are looking into Reading Horizons becoming a tier 1, which means every child in our schools would receive it. And so I know our staff are talking about, or K2 is talking about it this week to see if everybody's on board.
Janice, would that replace Foundations?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so, sorry, just to make sure I understand correctly. So right now, you guys are doing foundations, and then if a kid comes back to the board, they get reading horizons.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
It's not designed with that, it's designed to be a tier 1 curriculum where all kids get it. And we kind of tried to pull it in because we knew, like we've been talking about, we've seen some kids who are not responding, with the LOI and Fox and Pinnell materials. So we knew we needed something a little bit stronger with the phonics piece. And foundations is great too, but reading horizons is really a lot more systematic. So this is, it's designed to be a tier 1 for every kid program, and it's K through 6, right? The materials run on
Horizons.
Yeah, horizons too.
And then it's called like something different.
So
Like
discovery
discovery or
or
something at, 4 or 5. But the horizon starts K through 3, and each year, every grade starts at the same spot.
Reading Horizons also has spelling that is incorporated within it. And that is a piece that we did not have within foundations.
In KC, we also use the Reading Horizons and LOI. I'm Title 1 there, and they're very easy to incorporate with each other. Right now, I'm doing, for example, an LOI with one specific kid in 2nd grade, that I do the Reading Horizons and do all of the phonics pieces of it. And then there's worksheets that they do, and really make sure that they have it. He's working on blends right now. And so I use that. And then when we go into the LOI, which is more your fluency, your comprehension, those areas, then I'm able to incorporate that Reading Horizons piece in when we do our first read. We read it together, and like I said, we're doing blends. And so I have colored tape, and then he would have to find all of the different blends. If it was an S blend, then it's yellow. If it's an R blend, then it's blue. And we do it that way. And then he's able to take what he's learned and put it into another piece of it. And he's able to find those blends. And he's like, oh, I know these are my favorite. And read those. And then it's a smoother, more fluent, and his comprehension is smoother now on those pieces.
Horizons is really designed as well to teach to mastery. The program that we had before, you taught unit by unit, and then you gave a unit test, and you hoped kids scored really well, and if they didn't, hopefully plug them into an intervention. But Horizons really stresses you don't move them on until they haven't. And if these kids are ready to move on, then you find a group for them, and it's very fluid, but it's designed to make sure that they have that skill before they continue learning the program.
And we started incorporating this January. We started, and because I have so many levels, I do K-5. And so maybe because my kid that I'm talking about is in 2nd grade, he was not at a 2nd grade level. So I was able to do the assessments that they provide in the Reading Horizons, pinpoint exactly where he needed to be, and then start with those skills that were in the Reading Horizons, and then be able to match it up with the LOI. And then he's not like, well, you're in 2nd grade and he's trying to do these phonics skills that he has no idea. Able to go back, meet exactly where he was, and then continue on to meet that reading level that he was at.
Yeah, I also have some examples of our 1st grade interactive reader. It comes with super fun, lots of detailed pictures, and then it also has this folder that tells teachers, it just gives you questions to ask the kid if you're looking for service level comprehension or digging deeper into the book or making connections to the outside world. It gives you a writing example for how to respond to the text. And I also have guided reading notes with a very similar folder too, just kind of helping to prompt you to make sure that they're really diving in and understanding what they're reading. And then I also have my book for mini lessons that we teach the kids, and this is just reading behaviors that we hope every literate child would come with. And it starts like super easy at the beginning, like what does read to self look like? You sit still, you get started right away, your eyes are in your text, just going through the whole thing, like how do I make a list of my favorite authors, or how do I compare two characters between texts? Just reaching those first grade reading standards.
And those were all the Fontes and Pinel tools.
So, just in the assessment piece, we do what's called, and this is through Fontes and Pinel, they have a benchmark assessment system. We do that 3 times a year, up to 3 times a year. Some of our kids get it 1 time a year. Kids that are not at grade level are benchmarked 3 times a year. We use a fast bridge system for, I guess, district. It's a norm referenced assessment, and we did give that 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. And then White Top, we do interims at the beginning and middle of the year, and then we do the summative at the end of the year. And then throughout the year, those are just kind of key points of the year. Throughout the year, through the Fontes and Pinel system, the kids are being progress monitored with reading records quite often. And then there's a plethora of other assessments that teachers are utilizing just to kind of check where the students are at on any given day. So, teachers want to talk about that at all? Assessments are there.
I guess I would just add that for that fast book assessment, if a student gets flagged as someone who might need intervention, then we give additional assessments to try to dig in deeper on what those specific skill deficits might be. And so then that's where we're maybe giving some screeners that test their phonological awareness, or a spelling screener that might dig into some of the word patterns that they don't understand. And so that fast bridge gives us information that helps us dig even deeper.
And it also provides, if they are flagged, it also provides things that you can progress monitor, and you're able to watch those kids closely and see. And then I, for example, do one intervention with kindergarten, and they're targeted in their letter sounds. And so we work on that through the week. On Thursdays, we do progress monitor, see their growth, and once they hit their goal, then they're able to go into the next progress monitor, into their next skill.
And it is the assessment we replace DIBELS with, because it is one that the State Department identified as being able to flag reading disabilities. So we moved away from DIBELS to Fast Bridge 4 years ago. I think the COVID year average, wasn't it? Yeah.
So we get to look at some data here soon. So students in the 30% or lower range receive interventions through reading horizons. We talked about that. And that's our tier 2, tier 3, and we are considering moving that to our beginning instructions. If we do that, guess what? That doesn't mean that we're only going to have one item that we're going to teach kids with. We're already going to be searching for a tier 2 or tier 3 instructions. Okay, so let's just understand that piece too. And we also do CPMR, curriculum-based measurement, oral reading fluency. That's through FastBridge. As an assessment tool, actually not FastBridge, as an assessment tool to follow the data and show that initial growth. So we're going to have some nice, easy to read charts next.
Jake, you want to walk us through the charts?
Okay. So I'll walk you guys through the charts. As you can see on our left-hand side, we have a blue and yellow pie chart. And that is showing all the instruction that is occurring in first grade. You'll notice that we have about 25% of students in Reading Horizons, but we also have that tier 1 which is foundations, LLI, and we have about 74%. What's really cool about this is when we look at first grade growth, we're missing about 5%. Okay? That means we're going to be looking, we're going to continue digging to find how to reach that 5%. That means 95% of first graders right now are growing. It's really, really good. Okay, so our second grade, same stuff, left and right, but notice on the right we're now at a 4% growth that are growth. So we have 96% of second graders growing. That's a great thing. KC, we're a little more mixed with our reading horizons in our intervention and then LLI foundations, but we're seeing that 97% growth rate and 3% not growing yet. Pink though, they have 3 different types of interventions. Right now we really have core, LLI, and FPC, and they're seeing all students growing.
Well, to clarify, the green is the kids that are in the intervention.
Yeah.
In the intervention. So that core reading plus reading, or core plus reading horizons, core plus LLI, that's what that big green chart is on, those kids on.
And we'll let you talk to the last one, Mr. Anderson.
Well, yeah, and then on this one, because up to 3rd grade, we do what's called the CBMR. It's a fluency measure. We do not do that with the majority of our 4th and 5th graders, so I didn't bring that into consideration. I used a different growth factors. So still the same on the left, same pie, shows the different programs that we're using. And then on the right, the number of students that are shown.
So through all the data that you guys we flashed through real quick, there's some big takeaways. You're having a very effective tools being put forth in front of the kiddos when we're having 95, 97% growth rates. That's showing that the tools that we're using is growing students. The other piece to it is that you notice that we have multiple tools that we're using. And you can kind of see how there's different pockets of kids that are getting these tools they need to be successful. So that's kind of crucial. And of course, you never like red on a graph. And so we're going to continue to dig and peck at this to try to get it perfect.
Sorry, I'm so sorry, I have a question. Are all of those pie charts based on the 25% of kids that, or whatever, that were receiving extra help?
No,
Or did I understand that?
no.
That's based on the entire.
That's the entire grade.
Okay.
With the exception of, if you go to the 3rd in my building, it is only the kids that are in the intervention.
Yep.
Only the kids in the intervention.
So Metalart and KC, that is all kids.
So I guess we just have a lot of different tools at our disposal, teaching all the components of the literacy program. And we believe it's really important that our staff receive the literacy training. So like I said, probably 90% of our teachers that are working with, or our staff, not teachers, but we're all teachers, but that are working with kids in reading have embarked on the letters training. And some great conversations in our buildings about that learning. The district is supporting that. Each of the teachers that are participating in letters get a stipend because it is, I said, over 150 hours. I know the volume 1 was 96 plus hours, and I think volume 2 is a little bit less, so probably closer to, probably round it to 200. But anyway, a huge commitment of our staff beyond what we expect of them. They do this on their own. So that's really important for how our kids are going to succeed.
And we have paraprofessionals also participating in that. So So this just speaks more specifically to that letters training, WDE sponsoring it. It's, Mr. Anderson's already spoke to rigorous training of over 90 hours for each volume. We do have certified teachers and paraprofessionals engaged in this learning. It provides knowledge and tools that teachers can use in any reading program or curriculum. It includes the knowledge of the most current research on phonemic awareness, phonics, language, vocabulary, writing, spelling, and comprehension instruction. It includes tools for assessing student needs and providing instruction in the above areas. And we really feel this is a key piece of instruction that's been missing for most reading programs over the years. I think bringing it in is just causing everyone to have greater knowledge and really look at the tools we're using and who we're using them with.
And just to piggyback on that, I know that in our staff, just going through this training and having as many staff members that we have that have gone through this training, we have some really deep, rich discussions now over tools, and we have a better understanding as to the quality of the tools that we're putting in front of kids. So this training, I think, has really helped open our eyes to some of that.
Well, I guess just to kind of wrap up, we'll take some questions, but I guess my takeaway from the whole conversations that have been going on is, yeah, there was a podcast out there, some really interesting stuff that was in it. Some of it was, maybe kind of go, well, I wonder, but the bottom line is our staff is, we're doing the right stuff. When you go to the doctor prescribes medicine. It doesn't always work for every person the same way. So we have to, it's a little different when you're dealing with teaching kids to read, but our teachers are diagnosing what is going on with kids and then coming up with a plan to now, we're gonna add a different form of penicillin. So I think we're doing the right things. We're addressing the problems the right way. We don't always hit it. Sometimes we have to go back and try again. I think that kind of speaks to when we discovered that not all our kids were responding to LLI, level literacy intervention. We knew that we had to find something different.
Superintendent Oski, did you have anything to add?
This is super awesome. So I just want to point out, tonight was about getting the people that work with the kids every day and show you that as a district, if you look at the pie charts, they're identifying the areas that need focus on, but they're still providing room for all kids. And so this isn't as simple as opening up a textbook like maybe we did 20 years ago, following chapter to chapter, say kids can read. This is truly a science. And the extra hours and the time and effort that's being put into the kiddos here is truly remarkable. And it's around the state. Those extra hours and the things that they're doing, what building leadership is here is, I'm super grateful that we have a team of people that really want to make a difference. I know there's a lot of controversy out there of what we are and aren't doing. But the reality is we're doing the right stuff, and when it's not right, we're fixing it. All right, over time. And I know FMP is a huge topic, and some districts are getting rid of it. But I also want to make a very clear point. Some of the highest performing consistent districts in the state have been using that, and that's why it came into the state. But they're doing the same thing we are now, is we're evaluating what needs to grow, what works, what doesn't work, and we're shifting. I mean, 20 years ago to hear that a school would shift mid-season was unheard of, right? You got a staff who cares and say, hey, we're looking at piloting this, all right? Because we know this is better for kids. So I appreciate the team that's here, those of you that came tonight. I appreciate the leadership team, but there are some amazing things happening in this district. So thanks.
Thank you. Were there other questions? Or?
Hey, Jake, you hit the lights.
This is kind of a question. So I attended a Meadowlark and I saw this and it's a great presentation. Super made it understanding for us as parents. I do have one question, and it was when Mrs. Lambert had talked about, and it was in the pie charts, when you had talked about when you're still seeing those gaps when they get into like the third grade. We're gonna have a transitioner next year. She's coming from second to third. So my question is you said when you still see those gaps, and like you're gonna dig deeper into and go to those resources that are available, but then in Cloud Peak, did you say that we just started using Reading Horizons this January? Was that right, or was it before? So what are you, when you dig deeper, you find something, I guess my question is what are you using to, when you find a deeper spot, like what are you using to help correct that?
So our staff, our staff at Cloud Peak and Summit, Casey and Meadowlark, we went through training last June, an initial training, with the understanding or idea that we would utilize it in summer school. And then we had a follow-up training in August, and then we implemented with, I don't know how many kids in the very beginning of the year. Probably third grade was our biggest group of kids that we implemented with, and then we have about 6 or 7 in 4th grade and 5th grade. So it's not a whole implementation yet, but somebody want to talk to.
And maybe that's a question maybe more directed at the third grade teachers, Mrs. Lambert, I apologize, but I don't know again. And so I was just like you said, when we were digging deeper, I was like, okay, and that's wonderful. I'm excited about that. But my question is like what the support, and as a parent, like I understand the support. I've been watching Libby, the last, she went to junior K, so she's been there in Meadowlark. And so I got to kind of see like some of that stuff come into play. And so now what can my husband and I do as support? What can you use to, because I do see the data and the gap in the third grade. I don't think it's necessarily all education related. These kids are 8 and maybe some are 9, brand new school, brand new teachers, brand new specials. It's all like, it's a whole, like, there's a gamut of things that I'm seeing. And that's kind of stressful. I mean, it's stressful for me as an adult. So then we put your 9-year-old. So as support and reading, supporting, I feel it's really important. What can you do? What is there? As well as you're using the Reading Horizons, what else?
The FAST bridge in and of itself does have,
testing, right?
it's a screener, and then within that there's also suggestions for intervention, and then it also provides materials. I'll be honest, you have to dig around a bit in that system to find what you need, so it's not the most user-friendly thing, but what will happen for a student is it will like flag them in a particular area, like say phonics, and then it will kind of show you an intervention plan that you might have based on how they scored, and then it will have a list of suggestions of interventions that you might try that would address that specific skill that they're struggling with. So that FAST bridge system itself has some targeted interventions.
And then can you go back to those, Mrs. Lambert, can you go back to those other support systems that were used in the earlier years? Like, say
Oh, absolutely. And so like there's other screeners you can give, like there's one called the PASS that we have all kind of been exposed to through that letter training. PASS, yes. And so that would say the assessment flags for struggles in phonemic awareness. So then let's try to get the PASS and see what area of phonemic awareness that student is struggling with. Is it syllables? Is it blends? So then that assessment narrows it even more, which then can kind of target where you might start if you're going to work on some phonemic awareness. And then that Hagerty is an phonemic awareness program that they're using at Meadowlark. So we could certainly say, hey, we need some of those resources because this third grader is still struggling with some of those those first and second grade stage phonemic awareness situations.
So piggyback on that, when we do the past assessment, when we find out where they are, we have like a binder, it's Kilpatrick, which is similar to Hagerty's, where it's the cousin, like a relation. That if there's a gap, or we see where the kids are struggling, or they're not where they should be, then we pull out those Kilpatrick 1 minute drills that we do with them, and you do some of those. The other thing that we've done that we've had to do letters is there's a spelling screener, and it shows the gaps in what, like, maybe they don't have their vowel teams, or maybe they don't know their digraphs or something like that, and so it pinpoints those spots, and then you can dig into those as well.
So those are the supports that still happening in the past. Okay. Yeah.
And if you feel like I don't have anything, you know, we have this amazing team of people who have been teaching whatever grade levels for all these years. And so you go to your team and you say, hey, I have this kiddo that's still struggling with this. What resources do you have? Do you know where I can go? Who can I call? You know, so we do heavily rely on the expertise of the other teachers in the building.
Thank you for that explanation. I really appreciate that. I'm glad to hear of the actual supports. I wanted like a third. I appreciate that. I also have to say, I wasn't aware, I'm glad that you explained like the training, that it's basically like an option and that you have 90% of your teachers, like that's like, good job.
I had a question
To me,
about
that's a pretty amazing.
Is that the entire staff for Meadowlark and Copy, or was that just Copy?
No, I think that's true through our K-5 district-wide.
It's been a huge initiative.
I didn't realize, I thought maybe it was a requirement, just like meeting the standards, so that option, like, I'm like.
It's totally voluntary.
Amazing, yeah. So thanks.
In addition, we've got a build grant, which is based on literacy that we're looking to really support and train and do some more things with. So it all comes back to teachers are volunteering a lot of time and supporting that in professional development. So there's some long-term planning for this. I also want to point out the data piece includes at-risk IEP kids, the whole 9 yards. So that's a pretty phenomenal graph when you look at that. And in some cases, 15% of our average population around the state are special needs kids. So all of our kids are growing. So those are some pretty phenomenal numbers that you're seeing up there. But this isn't going to stop today or after tonight. We're going to hear professional learning communities. Maggie talked about the team comes together. You look at the data. And I know I referenced because of my age. There was a point in time you didn't look at this stuff until either a semester or at the end of the year. Okay, this is a constant all the time looking at where students are and trying to find a better way to reach them, all right? But also not by identifying and saying it's a disability, but there's an area of growth that they need to work on. Because some of this data that they're putting together, some kids they're rock stars in certain areas, but they have gaps. So where's the gap and how do you fix the gap so they can become better at what they're doing? And there is that age level, some kids just don't get it until it's a maturity thing, right? I have 2 kids, completely different time when they all of a sudden got it. And it's basically the same system, and I can say they're the same parents, same genetics. So there is some differences, right?
Principal Greg, could you tell a little bit about the teams when they sit down and evaluate each student's strengths and weaknesses and how they sort them into the right reading group to help? That was so cool when you guys showed me how you're doing that.
Well, it happens in public as well. So we have weekly, we meet after school. I think yours is the same pattern. Every grade level has one designated, we call it the little IPLC, which that will probably change in the acronym. And we literally look at every single child in that grade level and see if they're making growth. If no, are they making growth? Is any progress monitoring or assessment flagged an area of concern? And then we adjust. Do they need to move to a different group? Because all the students are involved in 35 to 40, depending on the grade level, minute reading group every day, and it's fluid, depending on need. But not only that, during the week, during the school day, teachers are required to meet as a team on their planning time. As soon as they get to plan lesson plans, at that point, they actually are looking a second time at student data, not only in literacy, but in math and writing. And it is not uncommon, and I'm sure I can speak to Mr. Anderson's staff as well, it's not uncommon to come back the next day and have someone say, we gotta meet at 7:15, maybe a year early, because I don't think we nailed it. And that's not an exaggeration. It's also not uncommon for them to take an additional planning time or maybe even after school. So that's along with the 504s and the IEPs, staff meeting, teacher leader meetings, guiding coalition meetings, UIS meetings, teachers who are involved, which almost all of them are in letters training. Those are 3 to 4 hour trainings, every other week? In addition to how many ever hours out of side of time in watching videos and doing papers, all of that has to be juggled in and around these other student-focused meetings. So it truly is a home focus, and I applaud our staff. I mean, it's a different game. I've been finishing up my 7th year in administration. 7 years ago, that was not the picture, and 20 years ago, it sure wasn't the picture. I mean, I wish my own kids could be privileged to what we're doing today.
Yeah, it was awesome to watch. I sat there asking lots of questions because I'm a brand new school board member and I don't know very much. So they started sorting these individual kids. Which reading group does this one need? Oh, this guy needs what? This one needs to go here. But it was awesome. Every kid, they knew every name and exactly what level they read at and how they could help them grow more with their group. So it was incredible to watch.
I think the power in that is these teachers, if you're a 3rd grade teacher, you're going to know every 3rd grade student and their strengths and the areas that they need to grow. And that was not the way it used to be. It used to be you had your class, you dealt with the class, and you might not even know some of the other 3rd grade students in that grade level if there were more than 1 or 2 sections. So that's powerful. If you as a student have 3 to 5 teachers, not to mention the paraprofessionals and the specialists working with you, you have a huge support system.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I said this the other night, and I want to say it to the other teachers. We can have any reading program, okay? But if we don't have the quality teachers that we have here, it's not going to work. I don't care what reading program we have. So we have, I feel, the best of the best who are teaching our kids how to read. And so I applaud them for that. We can have any program, but if we don't have quality teachers like we have here, okay? So I thank you.
So ending, this is a quote from an actual letters trainer. You are smarter than your curriculum. Use professional judgment, take the bits and pieces you need to do what you know is best for your students. Leave that tag on.
I think that's exactly what I wanted
You
to
just
say.
said. No, it's just a nice tag. I want to thank everybody for coming out. Tonight was not the weatherman fibbed a little bit. But I know the staff is exhausted. I know some of them were up late on Monday night for board meeting work and other meetings, and board members are here having a long board meeting, and so thank you for coming
I
out.
want to reemphasize that too, staff, certainly I appreciate that. Stakeholders that are here. So, if you have questions, we can hang around. But Mr. Evans was one that drew the straws, and he would love to answer any questions. Great job. And this will be on the web, it's recorded. So if you have if there's stakeholders here that said, hey, you should have came to this, eventually we'll put it on each school district website, it'll be a district website, so you can reference the people that said, hey, you should have come. We want to put this video up for the community, so it just wasn't a hit and miss, and be able to present that, okay?
And the decodables and read horizons and bigger here over that table, and the fonts and materials over here if you want to cut the books.
Sure.